Welcome to another video. Alright, so now it is past Christmas. I'm now finishing up the third chapter manuscript that I sent in to +1, so I journal 2-3 months ago. So that's what I mostly worked on this the first weekend in the UK. Now I am finishing it up, which means formatting. So I got in the email, in the response email, 2 PDFs where I have to follow the specific instructions for how to format, like the whole document, basically. And it can be a pain, and now it is a little bit of a pain because I have to rewrite and restructure a lot of the supplementary information, mainly, which not that many people read. So it's 80% of work for 20% of impact. And then I will send it in, upload the files into a specific location in a specific format. So and then I will wait for a few weeks. And I also just finished the last lines in the letter to the reviewer or editor, because it's a little bit archaic as well that the reviewers that review your publication, they don't give you comments in the text, like in the Word document, for example, but separately in lines. So the black text here, that is what the reviewers wrote, so you have to say line number 237. I would add an apostrophe after the S, for example. Then you, as an author, have to go back into the document, look for the line number 237 or whatever I said, and then change it. But of course, once you've changed something in the beginning of the document, the line numbers will not be accurate anymore. So that is a bit of a hassle. And then you, as an author, when you resubmit that document, that manuscript, you also say, okay, thank you for your review, and this was really helpful. And then you respond to the individual comments as well, saying, yeah, this was helpful, or we decided not to do this because of this and that reason. And most of the time these are good discussions, and sometimes, what a reviewer maybe wants to change and the authors didn't, it would be good to know as a reader as well, but most of the time still those communications are not published anywhere, so this is just hidden to anyone who thinks that this is, a paper where everyone agrees that this is, solid evidence, and then you don't see that other experts in the field might disagree with that. But there are some journals nowadays that also publish these reviewer discussions. I guess it's time to talk about academic publishing, because nobody's really happy with the current system except for the publishers. And that is because they are making big money while everyone has to pay. So I may have told you already that we don't earn money for publishing papers, and instead we have to pay. For all pretty good journals and all journals that are mandatorily open access, you have to pay about $1,000, $2,000, maybe more dollars. So this time it's around $2,000 to publish one single article in this journal. And then it is open access, which means that anyone who wants to read the articles doesn't have to pay. And otherwise, sometimes you have to pay like $30 or so or more to just read one article that is behind a paywall. So this is not really fair, because those publishers like Springer, Nature, Elsevier, Wiley, and so on, they all make a lot of money. And that's pretty unfair because Springer Nature, for example, I think this year made about 27% gross profits, which is an insanely high percentage for any company. So that's just money that they make, and while it should actually be put back into science and into society, because we're doing science for society and not for the publishers to get rich. And those publishers justify that they're taking so much money because it takes a lot of effort to do the editing, the typesetting and formatting and putting it into a PDF format and hosting it on their website, which can all be done very cheaply. There are even other projects like PCE, Peer Community In, that is basically a peer-to-peer
journal where everyone does editing and the hosting and everything on a volunteer basis, so that also works. But of course, everyone wants to publish in Nature, Science, and so on. So they're just basically getting paid for the clout that they have. It's like paying $10,000 for a Rolex watch, even though it's worth only a few $100s.
It's the next day and I realized that I haven't uploaded one of the figures that I redid. Because I already sent it off yesterday, there's no way of me correcting this mistake because the PDF is already built and everything is out in the system. And so yeah, now I have to wait until it comes back with reviews and then I have to redo it again. It's just a really archaic system that is very slow, and we do all the formatting and it has to be different for every journal. The reviewers are not getting paid. This is also us who are doing it. And yeah, it just takes, half a year or even more to get a paper out, which is why many people are now switching to the archive. So this has been a thing for at least 10 years or so in the physics and math communities, where people are writing papers, putting them online into an archive that is publicly available without any review, any peer review, any journaling, any formatting. So it's just out there without anyone having checked whether everything in that paper is correct and makes sense and is useful. So that is the downside of it, but the upside is that there are a lot more papers out. It's a lot cheaper and quicker. People are now also doing this more and more in biology. I have been doing it in 2020 in medicine as well, which was not very great because a lot of papers about COVID came out that were not of the highest standard. People just ran with it, especially the media. So there's, an up and down side to everything. For now, I will stick with the traditional publishing route because A, the peer review makes papers a lot more readable, and B, in biology there is still a lot more validity in publishing and having gone through peer review. That is good for your CV, for when you want to get hired. It's not just on the archive, but it is actually a real paper. Anyway, that was my rant. That is shared by, as I said, pretty much everyone except for the publishers. And yeah, now I'll continue with working on the model, the meandering model.